this is Valerie Aiello, and you're listening to IdeaDiary. Thanks for coming back to my office and hanging out. All right, this is another future show. I've been thinking about the future and what is going to happen with events. I feel like it's going to be a minute before conferences happen, and I don't know about concerts and stuff. I'm just trying to figure it out. I know one person that had a wedding, and it was an outdoor wedding on a boat. So like a river boat, just like in the lake. I think maybe they had 50 people at the wedding. I mean, it still could be germy, obviously, but I think people hung out like on the rooftop in the open air, and then they could go into the cabin if they wanted to, down below, but it was something different. And I don't know if the 50 people, if that's what they kind of always planned, or if they kind of downsized the wedding because of everything that happened. I'm not sure exactly. But they still had a wedding, and it was fine. I think it's been 2 weeks past since the actual wedding, so I don't think there was an outbreak or anything happened. And there was people that had traveled from different states to come to the wedding. I feel like there's an answer for all things, usually. I'm an optimist, but the one thing I was just kind of thinking about is conferences, because I'm not a super big fan of an online conference. I love conferences, and I definitely learned so much. I can go to a conference about anything at all, and I will learn something. I love them. I've been to big conferences. I've been to conferences with maybe 200 people that basically was like all one big room, and everyone got headphones, and depending on what stage you wanted to look at, you could turn your headphones on to capture the sound from the different stages, but everything was in the same room. I've been to, like, for example, South by Southwest here in Austin, and that's a pretty outdoor event. You never have to go inside to anything if you really don't want to. The main conference center holds all the speakers. There's always been some drama of whether or not people actually learn anything by going to South by Southwest. Kind of Austin style is it's really just a party to come network, which I feel like is a totally valuable experience when you're sending your employees off to a conference and they have fun the entire time. Now, I was a huge fan of the actual conference events and going to panels and listening to speakers. You didn't necessarily have to go to the big conference with hundreds of people in the room. You could just really go into the kind of break off conference rooms where maybe 20 people would be in there, maybe some would be very popular, like a rock star having a talk or something, and those would be full of people. But honestly, the small panels, you would maybe be in a room with 20 people. So I feel like the way that I'm thinking about events is, I think the important thing is, say the old way of having karaoke was you were in the big bar with all the people, and everyone was in the same room, and you sang a song to the entire bar. But then it became popular to do the Japanese style way of karaoke, where you would rent your private room and you go in a room with a couple friends and you would sing karaoke to each other. It really wasn't about doing it on stage or doing it to a big giant group of people. So I feel like the answer, or what's going to start happening with events, is they are going to come back. They might not come back in big convention centers where you have giant rooms and everyone's together, but kind of having that, instead of a stage where you have this experience where it's fun to talk to everybody, you're going to have kind of micro stages and break off things that you can do, which I feel like you can do that in person. If I went to say college, and the classroom had to be in person, I would probably go to class. So there are some things in classes you don't have to be there, but there are some that you do. And I think making that decision to go to an event in smaller groups does kind of feel okay. And having outdoor stages and outdoor events where maybe there are a bigger number of people, but it's all outside, there's a lot of airflow, you're not kind of stuck breathing in someone else's air. I feel like outdoor concerts, events, that can kind of come back. Who knows what's safe or not? But I feel like something can still happen. So I don't feel like the event industry is dead at all. I feel like it's being totally redesigned, and companies that are innovative with it and keep that in-person learning happening and in-person connection and focusing with outdoor spaces and focusing on small groups, I feel like a lot can happen. Another idea I had is, especially for conferences where you're supposed to learn something, because some conferences are insane and there's too much to learn. South by Southwest, for example, it was music and film and tech, and then it started to become political, and who knows? They added like 20 things. I guess they just wanted to crank up the numbers higher instead of keeping a focus on one industry. They were just letting it go wild and having all of these topics to discover within the conference, which wasn't bad, but at the same time, it did kind of dilute what was happening. I definitely saw the shift from music to tech, just being a local Austin person, where the tech week was kind of much more fun than the music week because there was just a shift. I think there was a bigger focus on tech, and that was just starting to take over, and the tech people had bigger, better parties, more stuff was free, cooler stuff and cooler places to hang out in. And then the music part just kind of was going to concerts in the same old way, which for an Austin person was all the time, anytime, any style of music you wanted, any day of the week. If there are conferences that are, the topics were too wide and there's too many people to kind of make happy, breaking it down, maybe getting all the information that you wanted people to learn into a documentary, into a online course type of thing, and then having micro events. So maybe a lot of different events in the same city, and maybe spread out, breaking down the people that are attending your conference into smaller groups, but giving some sort of really personal experience and personal interaction and sharing energy in person. I feel like in that same way where you have the karaoke room that can be in a big giant room with a big giant stage with 100 people in there, or it can be that private karaoke experience, which is still an in-person thing. I feel like with events, not just telling yourself, okay, our event has to be online and that kind of sucks and it's not as fun, but that's what we have to do. I think maybe rethinking the entire thing by making the educational portion of your conference into an online course of some kind, and maybe having some live video and live chats and stuff like that, but not focusing on that necessarily, or making some kind of conference documentary where you're compiling all the information that you want people to learn and let them learn that in their free time, but then have this sort of in-person small group, something good, something that connects people, that gives people that in-person learning experience. Same with concerts. I feel Like a lot of smaller concerts are going to happen, and it's going to be fun. Big artists. I think people are going to have to decide what's more worth it. Do you want to play a show for less money, or do you not want to play a show at all? Big artists are probably going to want to play shows for less money because that's part of having fun and being in a band is performing live. So, smaller audiences, that's way more intimate and way more special. I think we can look on the bright side of events. Even though the sides of events have changed, we can still keep the good things about events. We can still be in person on some level, maybe just doing things a little bit differently. But you can still create a mood and create a vibe and create an experience using sights, design stuff and sound, and using taste. You can still have food and drinks and events, at your event. Maybe you're not doing the buffet where everyone's touching everything, but you're prepackaging the smaller meals and making sure everything's clean and nobody's touching anyone else's things. You can still have all kinds of things. You can have a VR event that really makes you feel like you're in it, but not everyone has VR headsets yet, so that's not as fun. I know some comedians that are doing Zoom shows, comedian shows, and I don't know how they're doing it necessarily. Maybe you pay for a ticket and then you get a code to join Zoom, and with Zoom you can tier up so you could have more people inside of your Zoom presentation. There are all kinds of things to do. Sure, we can do online things and switch everything over to an online conference or show, but we can also do intimate small groups and kind of changing the idea of what a conference can be. And it doesn't mean necessarily that, let's say you're a conference that's normally in San Francisco. Instead of having all those workers work the event and have everything that happens to make an event happen in one space, maybe spread those workers out into different cities and kind of have micro events where everyone used to fly to San Francisco and get a hotel and go to this one event. And now what happens is there's a ticket, there's an online presentation from what you're supposed to learn, and then you have kind of micro in-person things where you take your ticket and you meet at some location that's maybe outside or maybe who knows what, but you at least get to meet 10 people that are also at your event. And maybe those micro events can happen in 100 cities across the world. And then those people can meet online and maybe chat and whatever groups that could kind of form from that. But at least you're getting some kind of micro in-person experience that makes you feel like you're there, you're learning something, it's amazing, whatever. Anyways, that was just on my mind today. Events, what's going to happen in the future. I think there's hope. I think just re-engineering it a little bit is going to change things a lot. And I'm not giving up on events. I'm not giving up on concerts. I think they're coming. I think they're going to be even more special. So that's my show for today, and I still don't know how to end the show, so I'm just going to play the music.